there are those videos on YouTube that completely change how you approach something in your life, and this is supposed to be one of those videos. So this is going to completely change how you look at studying, how you look at doing well in school, and I hope you're able to watch through the whole 8 minutes or however long it is. So getting straight A's is very, very easy. So you only have to do these 3 things, and that's practically it. Priming, encoding, ascending. This last step is not really, it's just a made up name I gave it, and you'll see why I called it that. So priming, this is actually in the literature. There is a lot of scientific research about how to study effectively, and I'm not going to go through any of the boring bits here. I'm just going to show you what everything looks like. So priming is what you have to do before you start studying, and this is how, again, you saw earlier my grades were CCB in my mock exams, and in 3 months, for a 2-year course, I managed to basically upgrade that to like 3 A's, and I only studied less than 2 hours a day. And everyone else is studying 6 to 8 hours a day. How you study less is by doing priming. Priming is basically going through the entire course before you start learning it and making a mind map on how everything connects. So you can see this is genuinely a screenshot from when I started priming my biology content. So to be honest, I was probably below a C before this. So like in terms of getting like a D in A level, like you really don't even have to study to get a D. Like you probably just sat in a few lessons and you'll get a D. Like that's how bad a D grade is at A level. So I didn't know anything, to be honest. Like I think I knew stuff from GCSE biology. That's probably what carried me. I've forgotten everything I learned in year 12. I'm waffling a bit here. But priming, so what you have to do is I look for the entire biology textbook, and I will look for the key areas in the textbook. So this is for, I believe, paper 2. So this is half of the biology textbook. So topics, let's say like 4 to 8 instead of 1 to 4. Sorry, 5 to 8 instead of 1 to 4. And I don't read everything. I look at the headings. I look at the big chunks. So like, first of all, what are the topics? And you can see here, one topic was about the heart. One topic was about neurons and nerve cells. Another topic down here is about energy and photosynthesis and respiration, which is 2 words that it says here. Then we've got another topic down here for ecosystems. There's a topic about genes and cancer, blood, glucose, water, right? What I did is I went through, found out all of these topics, and started trying to link them together and figure out how these topics all link together just based on my previous knowledge. So obviously, because I've done GCSE biology, you have to do GCSE biology to do A level. I had some previous knowledge on how some stuff works, and most of this is common sense. Obviously, the heart needs blood, right? So these are sort of linked. I also knew that the heart was a muscle, and there were nerve cells in the heart, and that was how it was able to contract, basically how the heart pumps. So it is slightly connected to the nerve. So these 2 things are actually quite close to each other on the mind map. You can see ecosystems down here. I had no clue how this was related to anything else, so I just chucked it down here. It's a bit further away from everything else in the mind map. Genes, well, that is related to evolution, so that was a topic. And also, I remember that ATP. So this is very limited information from just picking up some bits of information from sitting in classes when teachers are teaching, obviously. But the majority of the time I was sleeping or not listening, so I didn't actually have much information to go on. Again, this is just scraps of information that I'm using, and also reading a bit from the textbook and just trying to understand what's going on. ATP and energy, I know that is on like a molecular level, so the mitochondria, right? That is what's releasing the energy, and that is actually on the similar level to genes, right? So I assumed they are similar. So they're sort of in like one relationship. You can see over here we had alleles. Alleles are obviously just a different version of genes, so they are connected to each other. And then you got gene expression and gene projects. These are the last 2 topics, and I just really had no clue what was going on here, but obviously I knew that they had the name gene in it, so I connected them together. And this took me 2 hours to make, right? You can see I sat down. The first time I actually studied for my A-levels in year 13, like actually was at home and did some work on this, was when I made this mind map, and I sat down for 2 hours just trying to fill this out, and this is what I ended up with. So most people will think this is a waste of 2 hours because it looks like you haven't learned anything, and in fact, like, if I was going to take the test the next day, I wouldn't have really known much. Like, there's nothing to go off of here. But what I've done is I've built out a skeleton of what the actual biology course looks like and how everything connects to each other. And I ended up with this little thing over here, which I wrote survival. This isn't a topic, but this is how I thought everything seemed to connect to each other. There seemed to be like an inherent big connection, that everything was just basically for the organism's survival. And you can see the heart is obviously for the organism's survival, neurons, evolution, all of it is about survival in a general sense. That's what I ended up with, basically. I'm not sure what this arrow was for, but we will see later. The idea here is this is what you should be doing with any subject that you're doing. So chemistry, physics, even politics, economics, like whatever subject you're taking in school. Instead of sitting down and just studying a topic by topic, you want to go ahead and look at the entire course as a whole, because that's how it was designed. People who are making the exams understand the entire course. They actually chose bits from biology as a whole and decided, why should we put it into this A level, right? So they picked out bits from the biology as an entire subject. There is so much more in biology than there is in this A level, but they picked these topics out for a reason, and you want to figure out that reason, because that lets you get into the examiner's mind and just become an expert in the specific A level. So what I'm trying to do here is figure out, why did they choose these specific topics, how do they relate to each other, and why is it important? And I came to this idea that everything is related to survival. And this takes some time to get good at. It took me around a year before I was able to make a decent looking mind map like this. My earlier mind maps, I think I've got a picture over. Yeah, you can see a bad mind map over here. By the way, I've got a course on pre-sale, basically teaching you end-to-end on everything that I've taught so far. To be honest, you don't need to buy it. You can learn everything from my own channel and from Justin Sung's channel. But if you want everything in one place and you want to learn it as quickly as possible and apply it and hopefully not run out of time before you finish your year or your course, you can have a look at the link in the description and look at pre-buying it. It won't be out until around September. And this is like when I was learning to do this, but you can see it's really hard to follow. There's loads of different pieces of text, and this for chemistry, of course. And I only did it for one topic, right? So I had an exam. I think this is around like electrodes and stuff like that for chemistry A level, and I hadn't studied it at all, and I also wasn't listening in the lessons. So if I went into that exam, I would have got around 5% or something like that, right? Like generally things that have happened in actual chemistry exams, I've come out with 5%. And like most people find it difficult to get that low. And like I was genuinely doing this during my A-level course. But I wanted to sort of test and figure out like how small of a time input can I put into this topic and still get a good grade. And obviously mind mapping was what I was testing out throughout all of year 12 and year 13, I think. Sorry, end of year 12 and year 13. And this is what I came up with. Just for the one topic, obviously that's not great, but same idea applies. What I built out is a skeleton of this topic and tried to understand how everything fit together. And it's a bad mind map. There's not enough pictures, no colors really. I mean, colors aren't that important, but there's too many equations. There's loads of words that very, very difficult to follow, right? But I still got like 60%, and I study for I basically learned the entire topic in like 2-3 hours, and I got 60%. And obviously most people are actually listening in the lessons and also studying afterwards and still getting 60%, right? So to me, that was a win. But there's different there's lots of different techniques you can use to make your mind maps better, and they'll basically stick in your brain more. But back to this, I think priming, this is super important. This is the first step that you have to do with any subject that you do. If you're in year 11 and if you're about to take your GCSEs next year, so let's say obviously it's summer right now, so as soon as you're going into September, or even before September, you want to make sure you have this done for all of your subjects, okay? And you haven't finished your course. Most likely, if you're still studying, you haven't finished your course, whatever course you're studying, so GCSEs, A-levels, IGCSEs, whatever it is, you probably haven't finished your course. That means you have an opportunity here to do the priming. No one else is going to be going ahead and actually priming themselves on what's going to be coming ahead. Let's say you're taking your GCSEs in year 11, and you're doing biology, and there's lots of the textbook that you still haven't covered. You want to prime the entire textbook, so you want to go end to end, make sure you have a map like this for that, build it out, put as much time as you can into it. It generally, like, when you it will feel a bit pointless, because again, you take 2 hours and you come up with something that is as bare and as bare as this, and it seems like you've just wasted 2 hours, but it comes in handy later down the line. So what you do once you've primed is you continue to build upon it during the lessons. So you can see I'm slowly building out the mind map now as I'm learning more. Because I did this too late, I didn't have the opportunity to learn in the lessons and build on it in the lessons. But what you can do, if you're starting this early, and this is what I would do, which is what I will do when I actually start medical school, is you prime before you even start the course, before you get into any of the lessons, because you usually have materials. You can usually use a textbook and use that to prime, right? You don't have to go into a lesson, you don't need a teacher at that point. Once you've primed everything, how you can end up not having to study at all at home and still get really good grades is just by using that specific mind map in the lesson and building on it in the lesson. So how I'd do is, if I started this in year 12, I would have taken it into every lesson and I would have edited it and added on to it slowly and surely. Added some extra bits on blood, on the heart if we were learning about the heart, stuff like that, and slowly it would build out. And by the end of it, I'd have this mind map that I've been working on for 2 years straight, and I pretty much know it like in and out, like the back of my hand, and I'm going into the exam with that in my head. It's hard to not lose, sorry, not win. So you can see slowly I'm building this out. I'm having to do this with a textbook and learning it all myself because I haven't done it with a teacher. But same sort of idea. I think I prefer learning from like revision notes. So Save My Exams is what I used. One of my friends had a subscription, so I just asked him for the login there. And yeah, I'm just looking at these summary notes basically and filling this out further and further and getting a deeper understanding of each of these topics, because when I go over here, I actually don't understand any of these. I'm just thinking of on a high level, how do they relate? And now I'm starting to understand them, and I'm also changing some of the arrows, right? You can see how much bigger this arrow got over here, because I realized there's so much information that is going to have to go in here, that's going to loop around. And a lot of the things that you do in your priming section are going to change as you figure out how different things relate, because you're actually studying it now, you're actually learning the topics, and you're figuring how things relate, and some of your hypotheses might be wrong. So you can see this is a new arrow that come out. So I think this is about transcription, mRNA, and genes, and that pretty much covers a whole topic. It's basically like a gene is, I believe, transcribed into mRNA and then translated by tRNA into a protein, and that basically gives you the phenotype. And that is quite literally like 5-10 pages in the textbook just in one short picture, right? Same idea here. This is alleles all in one little diagram over there, and this is the trophic system, I think, and this is like phosphorus and nitrogen cycle. This gets edited later down the line because I just didn't really understand this, but I tried to skip it because I didn't really want to learn it. You can see here I'm going a bit deeper into the nerve cell as well. So I drew out first of all a nerve cell and then like electric on it, and I realized actually we have to learn more about this. We have to zoom in on it, and we have to figure out what's going on here. And I tried to learn this, which is depolarization, and how like protons are coming into the nerve cell and moving along, so how an impulse actually works. And then I figured out that actually links back to the heart again. So you can see you're just slowly building this out. Now, this is basically encoding, right? So what I'm doing here after I've primed, the next step is to encode, which means to continuously build out on this mind map, and continuously, like, every time you're adding to the mind map, you have to think, how does this relate? Why is this important to the bigger picture? And obviously understand the actual thing that you're learning as well. So most people won't encode, and the reason they don't do that is because when they go to a lesson, they just try and understand that topic alone, right? So if you're learning about the heart, you try and understand everything that the teacher is telling you, because they're overloading you with information, right? They're talking about the heart pulses and like how that matters. Then they're talking about the actual rhythm of the heart and like how it first goes into the I'm not sure on this, but I'm pretty sure it's like the ventricle, and then the aorta, ventricle, chambers, something like that. But it goes in some order, right? And you're trying to memorize the order, and you're also trying to memorize like all of the different terminologies. People go into that lesson, try and learn and understand it. They come out of the lesson, they think, okay, great, I understood the heart. And then they go to the next lesson, and now they're learning about the brain, and they try and understand the brain. But they're just not thinking about the heart at all until it comes up in the recap, which is 5 months down the line. So either what people will do is they'll forget about it and do bad in the exam when it actually comes up, or they'll try and continuously go back and like relearn the heart, right? They keep going back over the topic in the textbook, which is the heart. But if you're encoding, the difference here with the mind map is you're always thinking about everything. You're always thinking about the bigger picture. So whenever you're adding something to the mind map, for example, when I'm learning about nerves, or when I'm learning about the brain, I'm always thinking, first of all, where do I need to put it on the mind map? Where does it relate? And why is it important? After I've understood it, right? So you're forced to encode. You're forced to think about everything all in one go. So when I am actually learning about the brain, and someone he teaches me about the CAC, I realize that, okay, I need to put the brain closer to here and closer to the blood. Basically what happens if the pH gets too low and it gets too acidic, the CAC in the brain is going to basically slow, I think it's slow or fast, make it faster, but it basically changes the heartbeat rate, right? So when I'm learning about the brain, I'm putting it in a position that it relates to both the blood and the heart, right? And then when I'm learning about genes, I'm putting it in a position that it's close to the heart, but it's a bit different, right? And this way, when you're learning about topics that just seem completely unrelated, you're still thinking about the bigger picture consistently. And again, like I said, you're continuously adding on to this, and this just becomes like a web of information in your brain, and you understand biology or whatever subject you're learning on a much deeper level. And this is how people naturally think. So the reason why we're going with this is because this is how people naturally think. If you look at a biology expert or someone with like a PhD, they're not going to be thinking in terms of like memorized names and like just like the normal way that people learn, which is like just spamming flashcards. Like people who work in the profession of your subject are not having to memorize flashcards over and over again, whereas you are, because you're understanding it, but you're not encoding it. And these guys have encoded it. Obviously they might not have done it intentionally, but the fact that they're working in that profession basically encodes it for them. But what we can do is we can force it by doing a technique like this without having to actually spend years and years to get proficiency in it. So yeah, I mean, this is sort of the idea. You're encoding, so that's step 2, I believe. So where did that? You can see here, we're going back here, priming, encoding. So step 1 and step 2 done. To be honest, this is all you really have to do until you finish the entire syllabus at this point. and you're pretty much set after that. You'll finish the syllabus, you'll have mind maps for each of your topics, and you'll understand it's crazy the amount of the depth of your understanding. It's just so much better than when you're like doing anything else. And you're going to be able to start thinking like your own teacher is, right, about the subject. So the last step, reinforcing, reinforcing is actually just an addition to encoding. So I like to do this every now and then when I've got some free time and like I don't really want to learn something new. What I'll do is I'll go on a new whiteboard. So this is actually called Concepts, by the way, the app that I'm using here. But what I'll do is I'll go on a new whiteboard, infinite canvas, and I'll rearrange everything. So this is the same mind map, but I started from somewhere else. I tried to do it in a different angle or different direction and think about the bigger picture in a different direction and do it all from memory. So you can see here, again, everything's still linking in a similar way, but I've got muscles here as well, actually. And you've got, again, the blood connecting to the kidneys. You've got a bit of a different connection here with the gene therapy and how that all does stuff there. And you go a bit more into depth on how neurons actually connect to muscles. So this is the link between here is what I'm exploring in this diagram. But ideally you can see there's a lot of the similar pictures. I probably copy and pasted a lot of the pictures as well. But I'm just looking at it from a different angle on this mind map, and it's just reinforcing that encoding. Just the fact that you're able to spit something like this out just proves to yourself that you do understand what you're talking about in terms of this topic. Now, do I have anything else on? I don't think I do. It doesn't look like I've got anything else, but the last step is ascending, which is basically after you've done step 1 and 2, you really understand whatever subject you're studying. Number 3 is how you just win in terms of exams, how you beat everyone else in the exam. And because you got such a good base from 1 and 2, you basically ascend using using number 3. And I think this is from a previous video that I've done. But the idea here is basically you understand the topic. Now you just have to get really good at the skill of doing an exam. So taking exams is also a skill, just as much as studying is a skill. And if you want to practice taking the exam and get really good at that, basically just do loads and loads of exam paper questions at this point. Now, the quantity doesn't matter as much as the quality, which is very similar to what we were doing earlier. The reason this is the case, I'm going to show you how to actually do quality exam questions rather than quantity exam questions. So, I think I've got a diagram over here. This isn't great, actually. Yeah, let's just draw it from scratch. Basically, what you have to do is, let's say you take an exam paper, 2017 exam paper. Instead of practicing, you don't want to go ahead and practice exam technique right away. So exam technique is basically taking the exam in timed conditions. So like timing yourself, making sure you can work well under pressure. This you have to do only right before the exam. I only did it within like the last week before my exam, or even 2 weeks, right? What you want to do before that, once you've encoded everything, you'll still have a gap. You'll have like a study leave gap, right, in your school, and you'll have a lot of time to revise everything that you're learning. There's no point going back and like encoding and reinforcing again when you've encoded everything already. You understand what's going on. What you can do now is what I call descending, is do the exam paper, but do it in a method that is completely different to how everyone else does it. So what you want to do is you want to take it one question at a time, and you want to put your answer in, right? So question 1, you put your answer in. Now, this is getting difficult. Once you've put your answer in, though, you could do the whole paper, actually. You could do the whole paper in one go. I can't remember which one I did. But let's say you do the whole paper. Instead of marking it, this is where the actual learning happens, right? So you've done the whole paper, you've done question 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is. And instead of marking it, what you do is you come back here. And as you're doing the questions, actually, what I should have mentioned, every time you finish a question, you want to give it a rating. So tick for you think you got it right. A squiggly line for that you're a bit unsure, and a cross for you think you got it wrong. Right, and you've done that for all of these, right? So some of these you think you got wrong, some of these you're a bit unsure on. You think maybe you could have got it right, but you're not sure. And some of them you know you got right. And that gives you so much information now. And what you can do from there is, instead of marking it, you want to go over anything that is a cross or a squiggly line, and you want to pull out your textbook, pull out your mind map, use whatever resources you have. Literally, you can ask a teacher as well, but whatever resources you have, and you want to write out a model answer for each of these questions. So you write a new answer now, and after you write the new answer, now you think you got it right. And you want to do that until you've got a whole paper, exam paper, of answers that you think you got right. And why you're doing this is because, first of all, there's no point marking something that you think you got wrong, because you're probably going to get it wrong. All you're going to do is look at the answer scheme and think, oh, okay, I guess I was wrong. Maybe I should remember that for next time, but like, you're not going to remember that for next time. All right? How you're actually going to remember that for next time is you figured out you're wrong, and you know you're wrong. First of all, you're improving that skill. And second of all, you go and make a model answer. So you're forced to, again, go deep into this topic and understand it again, because you're pulling out a model answer for an exam question. And exam questions are usually difficultly worded, so it really just tests your understanding of what you're reading on the page. And once you've written out a model answer, you're really just getting a lot of benefit from that. So that, to be honest, if you come out of an exam paper and you've got loads of crosses, you should be happy, because there is so much extra learning that you can do from there that is just going to boost your grade compared to everyone else. So you've done your model answers, you think you've got everything right, and then you can actually mark it. And then again, there's a bit more that goes into it, because you might there might be a lot of things that you think you got right and you are still wrong in. So let's say some of these you think you got right, but you're still wrong. That's when this is where people just leave it, right? Usually most people just give up here and say, okay, I just hope this doesn't come up in the exam. But how you, again, just ascend and beat everyone else here is you make sure you understand why you got this wrong. Because if you have an assumption and you thought you were right here, but you're actually wrong, that's like a mine, like a bomb that's waiting to blow up on you in the exam. And you have to solve this before you get into the exam. How you solve that is, again, just like going back to the books, reading the answer schemes, trying to figure out like what it is that you got wrong. But like one of the best things here is actually just asking a teacher, because they're usually able to explain it really well. I didn't do this enough. I realized this like a week before my exam started. I realized how useful a teacher can be in this process. But I would recommend, just like email the teacher and ask them, like, I really don't understand why I got this wrong. Like, I sort of understand it, but I don't understand why my previous answer was wrong, because they both look right. And the chance is there's like a minuscule detail that you're making a mistake on, and they'd be able to tell you. And that is about it. I think I've gone over 8 minutes, but that's literally it. 3 steps to beating everyone in school and getting the best grades without having to study at all. And to be honest, again, if you do step 1 and step 2, you don't have to study until maybe like the last week before an exam, and then you can do step 3 and you'll probably get the highest grades possible. This took me about 2 years to even like cultivate and like get working properly. And I will say I didn't use it properly in my A-levels. So I didn't prime and encode. I could have done it. If I did it during the lessons, I wouldn't have had to study at all at home. The reason I only got 3 A's and not 3 A stars at the actual exam was because I left it until the end, and I had to learn everything myself rather than using the teacher like I showed over here. But hopefully that makes sense. Let me know what your thoughts are, and go get some good grades.